What is something you deeply regret doing as a child that still affects you to this day? When I was 4, a neighbor girl and I became friends. I invited her over one day to play. We were playing with dog food. It was fake food. Well, she started eating it. I screamed at her and called her nasty and was just shitty. Told her I didn't want to play with her anymore. As it turned out, the poor girl was severely neglected. Her parents never had food, so she was basically starving. It didn't dawn on me until I saw that they were kicked from their home and it was condemned and torn down a year after. I remember I went over to play one time and the house smelled like rotting hamburger meat. There were cockroaches everywhere. It was traumatizing. I cannot imagine living there. I have tried to find the girl via social media with no luck. I regret not having thicker skin and sticking up for myself from my bullies. There were 2 individuals who were complete psychos and went out of their way to make several people's lives hell. One girl was so crazy she tried running my friend off the road driving home from school. She is now in prison for embezzling from her employer. When I was 4, the husband of my aunt died. Very soon after his death, the whole family was gathered around in the living room. Me sitting across her. I wanted to make her feel better and said, "Don't worry. You will find a new Matty you will love." The hurt and surprised face of her haunts me even today. I understood I did something wrong, but not really what at that moment. We are on good terms and she is living a good life now. She very likely forgot what I told her that day. I'm probably the only one remembering that conversation. Rather than being parented, I was making life decisions at 6 years old. I said no to going to a gifted school so I would not leave my friends in 1st grade. I have not seen or spoken to a single one of these friends in over 40 years. Giving my niece floor burn for fun. I don't have a clue why I thought it was fun. Now they are in an awful state and completely covered in scars. Cross country. Goofed off with friends during warm-ups. Ankle and calf got caught while I was in a dead sprint. Loud snapping noise as my knee went. Healed okay-ish. Was able to get back to running a year or 2 afterwards, but it's deteriorated over the years. Early 20s now and I have to use a cane to get around. Can't go running anymore. Can't go hiking anymore. Stairs take a lot of effort. Too many flights and I struggle to walk even with the cane. Some nights I have a hard time falling asleep because it aches so bad. Take care of your knees, y'all. You don't know what you'd be missing. In I believe 2nd grade. A friend of mine and I were really mean to another kid with some type of mental challenge. It wasn't something we did more than this one instance. So I DK if I'd call it consistent bullying. But him and I said some nasty things to him on the last day of school. I should have known better and regret it to this day. I have seen his profile pop up on social media. And I do occasionally get the desire to reach out and apologize. But I'm not sure it would be worth it so far in the future. Nonetheless, I really wish I could talk some sense into myself back then. The boy didn't deserve that. Nobody would have. When I was maybe 12 to 13 I had a pellet gun. One of those that you would pump a few times and do little target shooting. Well, I grew up out in the country and one time I decided I wanted to shoot a bird. Now to clarify, I like animals and I didn't want to kill a bird. Just hit it because shooting my pellet gun was fun. And my stupid kid brain didn't connect shooting it with killing it. Anyways, I see a little bluebird and take a shot. I miss. I take another shot and miss. But on the 3rd shot I hit it. I immediately realize I fucked up. It fell out of the tree and was flopping around on the ground. I knew in that moment there was no saving it. The kindest thing I could do in the moment was to put it out of its misery. So I had to pump the gun up to the max. I wanted to make sure it killed it as painlessly as possible. Holding back tears before putting the pellet gun to its head and finishing it off. I was devastated. I was a murderer now. In that moment, if I could have lost a limb to save that bird and make up for my mistake, I would have. I remember crying for what felt like hours. Then I went inside and decided to make amends as best I could. This was back in the early days of the internet and we had AOL, so I went in and emailed all my little friends to let them know not to shoot birds, and convincing them to be more responsible with their own pellet, BB guns moving forward. To this day I still feel awful when I think back to that moment. Rip little bluebird. I promise I'm sorry and would undo it if I could. I accidentally grabbed a girl's boob in grade 8 during a wrestling portion of a combatives class. I got called a creep and the way the girls all looked at me has stuck. I now overcompensate to make sure I can never be seen as a creep, and it has made trying to date very difficult. Best friend and first friend came to me in 4th grade to tell me he was moving that day. I didn't know how to handle it and threw him out of the house. Tried to see him after a few hours, ran to his house but too late. Read in the news he got hit by a car and killed a year later. I always try to keep my wits about me and listening instead of getting physical now, even if I absolutely despise what's going on or feeling hurt. Being too hard on myself. Demanding too much. Forcing myself to be too mature. I also did a lot of self-harm which caused me to have very low self-esteem. When I was 5, me and a friend found a frog down by the river. Being kids, we had no common sense yet. We kept throwing it in the air and watched it bounce off the ground thinking it must be having fun. It died, of course. At 60. I still can't look at a frog without feeling guilty. Spending time of sites like Lively can rotten while in elementary school. Sitting at home all day during high school. Not studying while in school and struggling with building discipline today. Giving up my dog. When I was 11, my parents got me a lab puppy who I adored. I raised her for 2 years. She grew up to be an amazing dog but had high energy and my dad never watched her. Even if we needed him to. He refused and started bitching. So when I needed to go to the hospital for a broken leg, my one request was just watch her. This once. He said yes. Then when I came back a couple days later, she developed a UTI and almost starved because he didn't feed her, give her water, or let her out once. Not once. Taking care of the UTI was so hard to handle. So my mum gave me a choice. Let her suffer because he wasn't gonna buy the proper medication, or give her up. So I gave her up. Then I became a problem because I hated my dad for not getting medication for my dog, whose condition could kill her, but buying painkillers for his shitty dog who had an abscess on his foot. When I was 16, I went back to the shelter in hopes of finding her there, healthier than the day I gave her up. She died at the shelter because nobody adopted her or helped her. The infection spread to her kidneys, causing them to shut down. I fucking cried. I hated my dad as much as humanly possible and I miss her so much. In middle school I jumped from the top of a slide and landed flat on the bottom, hurting my back. Pretty sure I've never recovered. Stop exercising, any kind of working out because I was told my movement is awkward. Tried to shrink myself because I was a tall girl that stands out of other kids. which ruined my posture. Now I have a very bad scoliosis that cause mild but chronic back pain. It's very visible as my waist is not symmetrical. Might have to go under a big surgery. Putting braces to my spine. In the next 3 to 4 years. One time when I was 6 to 7 I rode on a four-wheeler with my older sister. We hit a dip in my grandparents' pasture. My sister fell off and she went under the rear tire. She needed immediate surgery. My grandmother still blames me for it and it has affected me deeply. For years I listened to how my sister almost died due to my negligence. Not sleeping in my dying father's bed with him. He asked me to because he didn't want to be alone. I was 18 at the time and wasn't not prepared for all this. Until the day I die I will never forgive myself. Not applying myself more in my studying in high school. Burning my sister's dollhouse down. In her room. Decapitating her Mrs. Beasley doll. I realize how this may appear. But I swear I am not a serial killer.